I was saying the pre-screening, like, people, when they talk about how they get nervous and they have to pee, I've never experienced that. Until the pre-screening, like immediately after my film ended, like one boy was like, "That's a great film." I was like, "Move out of the way, I need to pee." Oh my goodness! Anyway, I'm human, guys. Cool. Oh my goodness. So I started writing poetry when I was 12 or 13. I had this really cool English literature teacher, and she made us print out our favorite songs, the lyrics, and chambua them like poetry, right? And there was like one guy in my class who printed out the thong song lyrics. I am more cultured. I think I wanted like a Whitney Houston song or something. But it was like the first time I was like, oh, words are so like wonderful. Like take away the beat, everything. They're so wonderful. And I started writing lame poetry about trees and like my mom and whatever. And I just have always found that written word is an easier way for me to express myself, even with friends, etc. And poetry is a way for me to like add words to the things I see in my head, or save myself from experiences that have nearly broken me. I'll always find safety in words. So that's what inspires a lot of my poetry. It's not fictitious, it's more things that I've experienced and maybe trying to make sense of them or trying to find healing. Yeah, but you didn't read my poetry from it. The trees are green. Can't remember any one of my poems. No, but I do know that I had like, guys, I was not a cool teenager. I had like a folder that had like all my poetry, and I would cut out like, if it's about trees, I'd cut out a picture of a tree and like paste it there. It's like, the tree, majestic. Yeah, but I can't remember any words from them. Or maybe I just don't want to embarrass myself, perhaps.
Let's be honest here.
Oh my God. First and foremost, I like to think of my poetry as existing in like scattered, first literally they're scattered, because I could get inspiration and like be in a place where I can't write in a notebook and have to just like quickly send myself a voice note or write it in my notes app. And then I have thousands of notebooks, and like the line will come and I'll like grab whichever one is near and like jot it down. So home was scattered. But I started writing home and the pieces that accompany home in 2022. And I felt like I had gotten to a point in my life where I was fully coming back home to myself, especially as an African woman. And I was defying all of the spaces in our lives as African women that give us shame as this kind of like, these handcuffs, right? And I was interrogating the things that we're told are rules and being like, but why is that the rule, And even taking note of the rules I had broken and I hadn't died, and I was like, hang on, we were told not to do this, but I did it and I'm thriving, right? And so I was also writing about relationships and sex and childhood, and my mom, who I think was also defying a lot of these rules as well while she was alive. And home was there because I also felt like I was finally accepting my body, this physical thing, as, oh, it's so majestic, it's so powerful. Like, do I have scars? Yes, I do, and they're beautiful, and that's kind of where I was at the point. And when I was writing, I didn't know what was gonna happen with this poetry. I knew I wanted to take it on the road. I knew I wanted it to exist in various art forms. So like film was on my whiteboard, and like photography and music. And I was like, which producer do I, But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna think about all of that. I'm just going to write. And it's so magical how Home has come to be a film because that was the intention back then. Oh my God, the process of making Home a film, right, was...
First of all, writing.
Writing.
It from like a piece of paper.
Yes. Respect to all script writers. Let me first start there. Writing, or like migrating Home from a poem into a script was very strange for me first. And I remember in the writer's room really struggling, right? Because when you've written poetry, it's so obvious what I'm seeing in my head. But I'm not describing everything I'm seeing, or like I'm not giving stage directions. I'm like, now you read my poetry and then you tell me what you see. You know what I mean? And so the writer's room is like, okay, no, but tell us how this visual comes to be. And it's like exterior. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, just let the words take you where you want the words to take you. And so that's why I'm saying it was so strange, because it was so different, and kind of like drawing everything, you know, like the sun and the grass and the feather will do this. But I think once I got over the imposter syndrome, like feeling like this is not my space, and saying, okay, let me sit in this. Like, I have a good command of words. We've written the poem, which is 90% of this thing. How hard can this other thing be? Then I kind of got into it, and I think the team was wonderful in the writer's room, and also my producer also was quite helpful in like saying this is what a script kind of looks like. But it was strange, like beautiful but strange. Yeah,
a whole different world.
So different. It's a different world. Was it tough to work with Abigail? No, it wasn't. Girl power. First and foremost, the writer's room was just, as I said, I did have imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not gonna lie, because I was entering a world I didn't know, and I didn't know if I belonged there or not, right? And it helped to have familiar faces. So I went to school with Abigail, we're friends. I have been such a fan of her poetry. So kind of like seeing another poet, I'm like, okay, we're in together. But I think what was also so magical about the writing process is the unpacking of our own personal experiences, right? And really thinking about our teenagehood or like early adulthood, and what are some of the experiences we went through that maybe could have been better, or maybe we didn't have to go through them. That I think for me was like super, that was wonderful, because it made it less technical, and it was more like you deserve to be here because you're human and you have an experience that we want to hear. Yeah. Shooting it was quite interesting, because in my day-to-day life, I don't make films, but I would liken my role to being a producer. So putting together a shoot if we're interviewing someone for my podcast, etc. So I'm used to that bit, right? And then like telling whoever is shooting to like make it happen, you know? And as a control freak, now you're telling me to let go of that and like just focus on this side. And I'm like, but have you called, you know, like trying to turn that off was so hard, because I wanted to do that, because that was like my day-to-day. But once I was like, okay, this is wonderful. It's the first time I don't have to worry about those nitty-gritties. I just have to create. It was interesting because at first I tried to read as much as possible as like, what do directors do in like YouTube videos? Directing for dummies. And you're like, this doesn't apply to me. This won't work, and no. But what I found like really works is like trying to just have human connections with everybody. So with Obra, who's my DOP, like really opening up, which is so beautiful, but it's like you're reliving this vulnerability all over again, like opening up and saying, when I was writing, this is what I was feeling. Did you experience this like in your life, etc.? And like repeating that with like each cast member of like, do you remember when this was happening, etc. And kind of like trying to piece together directing for Adelle, like what does that look like? And sometimes I would be like, am I doing it in the middle? And they're like, yeah, that's direction. I'm like, oh, I stumbled on it. I didn't know I was doing it. And then just appreciating the many moving parts, right? From the catering to, we had a bull on like one of our scenes. I don't know, guys, I wanted the bull there. Like when I was writing it, I saw the bull and I was like, find me a bull, right? And they did. But the bull needed like a guy to keep telling it like, chill, like, don't go too far that side, like come back. And you know, like it's like, oh man, if we didn't have that guy, I don't know what we would have done. So just appreciating the small, every small or small in quotes role plays such a huge, like impacts the film and the making of the film in such a huge way. It's very different from me writing my poetry and publishing it online. You know, now there were all of these small moving parts and those parts don't stop. Like it's, once you finish production, it's like they pass the baton to a million other people to be like, okay, now this, you know? And I was like, hiya, Kumbe, you guys do work in this film industry of yours. But it was beautiful. First, I was sent the first cut and it took me 3 days to watch it, right? Because I just felt like first my inner critic who had managed to silence for so many years was like, haha, game on. And I was like, I don't want to hear from her. So I would like hit play and I would like, no, not today. And the next day I'd like hit play, and the third day, my producer was like, we kind of need you to watch this. Like, we can't move forward if you do not hit play and like commit. And, you know, watching it, that was like a wonderful feeling, right? When you're in the middle of it, you don't see it. And like that first cut, I could move back and be like, oh my God, we actually did that. And like seeing shots, I'm like, oh, bruh, really was on a tree trying to get this shot. Like, that's wonderful. Like, oh, this was my favorite shot. And I remember giving feedback and, you know, like at every timestamp, like you write a comment and some were just emojis like, ah, ooh, hurt. And like obviously there was constructive criticism as well in there, but overall it was just like, oh my God, like, is this my poetry like moving and like breathing in a way that is so different? Yes, I was nervous at first to watch that first cut, but then like once I did, I just felt so proud of everybody involved in it and so proud of like, we had kids on set. One of the kids was her first time ever and I was just like, oh my God, Geralda, like you really did it. Like in the moment I could appreciate it because I was like, we're losing lights. But it was just so magical and I think I still have that feeling with every cut I'm watching, you know? Oh my word. I keep saying home is for every African woman and girl, but the more I think about it, I feel like it expands to also the boys and the girl and the men. And I see it every day. I think we're living in a time where we're meant to be more connected and in that connectedness, appreciate how different we are and create spaces that allow you to be who you are, and in turn allow me to be who I am, right? But unfortunately, it's weird, like the more connected we're getting, the more it's like there's one way to do life, and the more we're seeing a more slamming down on women, a more slamming down on girls, like, and I just want like young African girls to watch it so they can drown out the words that are telling them they're not okay as they are, and that they're not enough as they are, and that there's something wrong with them. That's one. And then I want the African adults to watch it, and so that they can confront the wounded young African in them that's making them wound other girls and say, you know, terrible things or set rules for how we're meant to be. I would just want everybody who watches home to walk away feeling like maybe the words they've been telling themselves or about themselves weren't theirs to begin with. Maybe it's like an aunt who said some trashy comment about you and you've been believing this thing, and it's like, hang on. That's not what I think about myself, right? I just want there to be like a liberation and a freedom to be who you are and to love who you are, to be what Africans walk away with after watching home. Shout out to Mungai. He did not pay me to say this. Do you want me to answer that?
No.
I do have an answer.
Please answer.
Okay. I feel like Mungai and the entire DocuBox team are so kind. Like, I don't know how the recruitment process is. Are so kind and just so, I don't want to say patient because it makes it seem like I'm hard to work with. I wouldn't say patient. I would say kind in that, and maybe patient in the sense of I felt not rushed. I felt not unwelcomed into this new space. It was almost like everyone is a creator. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 400 films, if this is your first one, it's valid, and like your existence in this space is valid. And I think I needed that, you know? And so I really appreciated that, which is why I'm like, they're just so kind. So yeah, I did have an answer. Yeah. Oh my God. First to Merit, like, I just felt like she validated my journey. From the writer's room, I remember her constantly saying, poets make the best script writers. Like, I have this, I think that's the case, and I think we're gonna find that to be true. And I just kept whenever I'd have imposter syndrome, I would go back to her and I'm just like, well, she's been doing this film thing for a while, so she must know what she's talking about. So yeah, do it. And that was really necessary, and I just felt it was a very human experience. I didn't feel like it was you're reporting to work, etc. But to the entire team, I think it's so wonderful to just let creators create. Like, there was no wrong, there was no right. It was like, what do you want to say, you know? And I understand from other people, other filmmakers, because this is my first film, that that's not always the case. In fact, most of the times, it's not the case. Your creativity is stifled for many other reasons and things, and that sometimes means the African creators' dream of what they want to create gets stifled or gets like mixed up with other things. So I really appreciate that we were really let loose, and it's like, what do you want to do? And I mean, like, I wanted a bull. I just get in all the calls, I was like, I need a bull behind that character, and we're gonna get a bull, you know? So I think it would just, my message would just be like, thank you, like, for letting African creators do what we do best, which is just create and not interrupting that.
What are we to look forward to?
Oh my goodness. So I'm already working on my next script. And I'm still having a hard time. Like, you know, that whole transition from a sheet of poetry into the script. I'm like, oh man, not this interior, exterior again. But I have fallen in love with how film translates my poetry into a language that a lot more can understand. Like, that's so wonderful to me. And I'm like, there's a poem that I knew when I was writing it needed to exist as a film, and that's what I'm working on right now. So hang on. Maybe a few chickens. Maybe some chickens.